Hello guys, my name is Piers and today we're going to implement the result pattern from scratch in C#. Now, not necessarily recommend to use your own library for the result pattern. There are some great libraries I personally use and I like very much Error or library, and I have a video about that, but I think it could add value to know how these libraries work under the hood. So let's go right into code. Now I have a result pattern .NET library project is empty, and first of all I'm going to create a new class and I will call that result. Okay, we have a result, and let's say that the contract that we will follow is that we have a result that can have a value, which is the actual retriever value, and an error. So next I'm going to create a class called error. And now my error, let's say I wanted to have three properties: a type, a code, and a description. So first of all, let's create an enum for the type. So I will say public enum error type. Let's say we'll have a not found, validation, etc. So my error will have an error type. Let's call that type, and let's remove the setter. We only want a getter, and let's make a string code. So string code and a string description. Okay, and let's initialize all of them from a constructor. Okay, now maybe we don't want to force the one who's using our package to always pass a code and a description, so we can make that parameters in our constructor nullable with the default value being null. Okay, now we can say something like if the code is null, just use the type .toString and do the same for the description. So description .toString. Okay. Type to string. Okay, and now we have our error. So our result, we want to have a value which can be anything and an error. So I will make that a generic class result of t, and I will also have a private read-only field of t which can be nullable, and that will be our value. And I'll do the same for an error, so that will be an error. It will be again nullable because our result may have an error or a value, and I will call that error. And now I pasted some code in my program.cs class, and if you see here I have a person with an ID and a name. I have a people service and a method getById, so that the method can return an error or a person. If we find the person, we return the person. If we don't, we return an error. And now in here I initialize my people service, and then I call the getById method, and I want to check that if the result is success, I want to write the person's name, and if the result is error, I want to print all the error details like the type, the code, and the description. So first thing we are missing is the isSuccess method of our result. So I will make a public property, and I will call that isSuccess, and that will be success if we have no error, so if error is null. So I'm going to say error is null. Okay, now that the compiler error went away, and we also have a way to access the value or the error. So again, I'll make two public properties. So public t value, and that and there is no need for that to be nullable because we have already checked if the result is error. So if it's error, the error will have a value, and if it's not an error, the value will have a value. So I will say value, and in case that is null, I will throw a new invalid operation exception with a message like the result is error or something like that. Maybe you want to be more descriptive. And I will do the same for the error, so that will be an error, and I want to return the error. And if the error is null, I will say the result is success. So back to our program.cs, all that errors went away. And then now let's go inside our getById method, and we can see if the ID is 1, we want to return a new person, else we want to return an error. But we get some compiler errors, and if we see that error, it says that we cannot convert an error to a result of person, because that the signature of this method says that it returns a result of person, and we try to return an error. So how we solve this? I'll go again back to my result. And first of all, let's create two constructors, one for creating a result with a value and one for creating a result with an error. And I will make those constructors private so we cannot access them outside of the result class. And I will say private result, and that will have the value, so value. And we will set the value equal to the value, and I'll do the same for the error, so I'll copy and paste that because I'm lazy, and that will be an error, and we'll set the error field equals to the error that we get from the constructor. So now we have a way to initialize our value or the error, and let's go back to that problem we have over here. I'm going to use an implicit operator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say public static implicit operator of result of t, and I want to have an error in here, and I'll just return a new result of t with @error. And now if we go back to our program.cs, you see that error went away, because what that implicit operator does is says when you try to assign a value of type error to a result, just take the error, create a new result with that error, and assign that result object to the result. So my ID also gives me a hint, and it says implicit conversion of new error to result of person. So we can do easily the same for the person. I'll just duplicate that, and in here I will accept a t value, and I will create a new result from the constructor which accepts a value. So we have the same behavior again. If we see here, it says that implicit conversion of a person to a result of a person. So now our code works and we can test it. Let's first of all check with the ID of 1, in which we wait to print the name Spiros in the console. Let's do that. And we can see Spiros, and if I change that to 2, we'll see the error details. So you can see type not found, code 1, 2, 3, description person not found. Now let's think about another use case. Let's say we have a method in here, and before we thought that we should use the error, the result pattern, we had a public void create, and we would accept a person, but let's say an ID for simplicity reasons. And now again we want, if the ID is 1, to throw an exception or something like that. We can create a person with the ID of 1 for some reason. And else we wanna just return. So now we can't use in here a result of something, because that method doesn't return something, or does the job, or returns an error. So maybe we just need to return a result, and in case there is an error, we want to return an error. So something like 1, 2, 3, 4, and description not valid. And else maybe we wanna say something simple like I don't know, result dot success. And now I'll comment that out, and I'll call my new method. So I have my new method. I call the create method with the ID of 2, and if the result is success, I just print success, and if the result is an error, I just print the error details like previously. But that will not work. As you can see, we have some compiler errors. So I'll go back to my result class and I'll create a new class which will be a public class of result without any generic arguments or anything, because we only care if it's success and for the error. So let me copy again that private read-only error field and that public property. Let's also copy the constructor with the error. And of course we need to check for if it's success, so I'll copy and paste that as well. Okay, let's go back to our program.cs, and we are missing that success property, so I'm going to create that. I will say public static result success, and I'll just return a new result. But as you can see, we have an error again because we don't have an empty constructor, so let's create that as well. So private result, and now it doesn't complain. Also, I'm going to create a new public static implicit operator, so I'm going to say public static implicit of result, and we will accept the error and we'll return a new result with that error as a parameter. Now back to our program.cs, everything seems fine, and I also need to return that as well. And as you can see again, we have an implicit conversion of error to result. Again, it's the same process. When we try to assign an error to a result, we will create a result from that error, and then we'll assign that new result to that result over there. So that should work fine, but I don't know about you, but I see a lot of repetitive code. Like I have a read-only error in here, a constructor with an error, the success, the public property of error. So I think it's wise to remove all the duplicated code. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that result that can be a value or an error. I will make it inherit from my result class. And now as you can see, we get some warnings like the keyword new is required because we have the isSuccess method in the result as well. So I'm going to remove that. I'm going to remove that as well. And we have the error already in the result, so I'm going to remove that error as well. And now as you can see, we have again some errors that says that cannot access private constructor result of error. So what that says is that we need to make that a protected result. And also we don't have an error value in here anymore. So we want to call the base constructor and pass the error. And that also complains that the base class does not contain parameters constructor. And actually it does, but it is private. So we can make that protected as well. And now we can access it from here. So by default, it's going to call that constructor with no arguments in the base class. It's something like that. So now everything should work fine again. Let's test that for the create method. So we'll call it with an ID of 2, and we have a success. And if we call it with an ID of 1, we get a not found, code 1234, description not valid. Maybe that should be validation. But all in all, that's the base logic of a result. We hold 2 values, the actual value that we want to return or an error. That error can also be a list of errors or anything. And then we have some implicit operators to create a result from the value or from the error. And now you can build on that. You can make extension methods to use pattern matching, etc. But that is the base logic behind the result pattern. So that was it. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching and have a nice one.